WNBA Finals. And so I'll leave it there. I mean, I'm just obviously disheartened. You know, I'm a human too. I have a family. I have 2 kids who are devastated by these comments. And so all I'll say is just, you know, it's obviously...
The sound of the final buzzer echoes, not in a packed arena, but in the quiet confines of a league office, signaling the end of an era not with a championship celebration, but with a seismic, behind-the-scenes power shift. This is the story of how a revolution, fueled by one unprecedented superstar and a global corporate giant, finally toppled a regime. The reported resignation of WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert is not a simple retirement. It is the culmination of a 2-year-long Cold War within women's basketball, a war between the past's ethos of grateful survival and the future's demand for dominant, market-driven stardom. And this seismic event is intrinsically, undeniably tied to a single, parallel announcement: Caitlin Clark's historic, game-changing contract upgrade with Nike. To understand the magnitude of this moment, to grasp why a commissioner's potential departure is intertwined with an athlete's shoe deal, we must rewind the tape. We must examine the secret conversations, the leaked betrayals, the cultural clashes, and the raw economics that have brought the WNBA to this stunning crossroads. This is a tale of more than basketball. It is a case study in power, a dissection of institutional jealousy, and the story of the biggest fumble and subsequent recovery in modern sports history. The year was 2024. Caitlin Clark, a name already etched in NCAA record books, her logo ranged 3-pointers and audacious passing, the stuff of viral highlights, stepped onto the professional stage. She entered the WNBA not as a rookie, but as a cultural tsunami. Ticket prices for Indiana Fever games skyrocketed overnight. Road arenas, long accustomed to modest crowds, sold out for her visits. Television ratings shattered records, drawing in millions of viewers who had never before tuned into a women's basketball game. Private charter flights, a long-sought luxury for player health and performance, finally became a league-wide mandate, a direct response to the scheduling chaos and security concerns generated by the mobs of fans following her. Clark was, by every external metric, the savior the league had longed for since its inception, a transcendent, must-see talent who commanded the attention of the mainstream sports world. Yet, within the hallowed halls of the WNBA and among some of its established veterans, the reaction was not a unified embrace. Instead, a palpable tension took root. A narrative began to fester, pushed in media interviews by some league legends, that Clark was merely a popular product of white privilege and media hype, that her game was flash over substance, that she hadn't paid her dues. On the court, this manifested in a series of notoriously hard, flagrant fouls that seemed less like competitive physicality and more like targeted messages. The league's response was often slow, deliberative, seeming to weigh the optics of protecting its golden goose against an unspoken desire to not alienate its existing player base. Through this baptism by fire, both physical and rhetorical, the voice from the commissioner's office was often absent, or notably neutral. When Clark was body-checked to the floor, the league took days to issue upgraded fouls. When veteran players openly qualified her achievements, there was no public defense of the league's own record-breaking asset. This passive, almost observational stance from leadership created a vacuum, and into that vacuum poured a toxic narrative. Why does the WNBA hate its own savior? Fans, particularly the millions of new ones Clark brought, were not just watching games. They were watching a drama, and they perceived the league's institution as an antagonistic force in the story of its brightest star. This was the first critical failure of leadership under Engelbert. The commissioner, a former corporate CEO brought in to steward the league's business, seemed to misread the moment. Her approach appeared rooted in a philosophy of equity and gradual growth, of not wanting to appear to anoint one player over others for fear of disrupting locker room chemistry or offending longtime veterans. But in doing so, she failed the primary test of entertainment leadership: to recognize and promote your most compelling product. The NBA, in the 1,980 seconds, didn't hide Larry Bird and Magic Johnson to make other teams feel better. It built its entire marketing apparatus around them. Engelbert's WNBA, facing its own bird magic moment in Clark, seemed intent on asking her to wait her turn. Beneath the public spectacle, in the closed-door meetings of league governors and executive sessions, a more insidious conflict was brewing. The source of this conflict was a fundamental disconnect over value, leverage, and gratitude. According to high-level reports and rumors that have swirled through league offices and agent circles for months, this disconnect crystallized in a single catastrophic phrase. Late in the 2025 season, during a confidential meeting discussing revenue sharing and player marketing initiatives, Commissioner Engelbert was allegedly caught on a hot mic, or her comments were relayed by a dissenting participant. The subject was, inevitably, Caitlin Clark and her unprecedented impact. In this private setting, Engelbert is reported to have expressed a sentiment that would become the match in the powder keg. She suggested that Clark and her camp should be grateful for the platform the WNBA provided, insinuating that the league's infrastructure was the indispensable foundation for Clark's success, that without the WNBA, she'd just be a girl with a basketball. The word grateful echoed through the corridors of power with the force of a grenade. In the context of women's sports, grateful is a loaded, historically fraught term. For decades, female athletes had been told to be grateful for any coverage, any sponsorships, any professional opportunities at all. They were to accept meager salaries and second-rate facilities with a smile, thankful just to have a seat at the table. Caitlin Clark represented the antithesis of that mindset. She was not a supplicant. She was a value creator of such magnitude that she was the table. Her leverage was not granted by the league. It was brought by her to the league. The leak of this comment, whether intentional or not, was a catastrophic breach of trust. It revealed a staggering level of institutional arrogance and a profound misreading of the new power dynamics. It signaled to Clark's camp, to her agents, and to the savvy players around the league that the highest office in the WNBA did not fully comprehend the revolutionary shift it was living through. The comment offended not only Clark, but every player who understood their own worth. Stars like Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, who had founded the unrivaled league to create off-season earning opportunities the WNBA couldn't provide, heard in that word the echo of an old, limiting mindset. If the commissioner believed the league's biggest star should simply be grateful, what did she think of the role players? This ungrateful leak transformed the internal conflict. It was no longer just about playing time or media attention. It was about a fundamental lack of respect from the top. It framed the league office not as a partner in growth, but as a paternalistic gatekeeper, bewildered and perhaps resentful of the very force that was ensuring its survival and prosperity. The fracture between the commissioner's office and the Indiana Fever franchise, the epicenter of Clark mania, became palpable. The Fever were the league's undeniable economic engine, driving merchandise sales and television ratings, yet there were whispers that the league hesitated to center them in primetime slots or marketing campaigns for fear of upsetting the competitive balance or the feelings of other franchises. This equity-driven approach, in the face of a superstar-driven economic reality, was a recipe for stagnation. While the WNBA's internal politics simmered, the outside world was drawing its own conclusions, and none were more significant than those at Nike headquarters. The swoosh is not a sports brand driven by sentiment or tradition. It is a cold, calculating machine built on identifying and investing in cultural momentum. For 2 years, Nike watched. They watched the ratings, the social media metrics, the merchandise sales that defied all WNBA precedent. They conducted their own market research and saw a phenomenon that transcended basketball. A charismatic, bold, record-breaking athlete who connected with a generation of young fans, both male and female, in a way no woman in team sports had since perhaps Mia Hamm. In late 2025, Nike rendered its verdict, and it was a verdict that made the WNBA's internal dithering look embarrassingly small time. They didn't just reaffirm their partnership with Caitlin Clark, they escalated it to a stratospheric level, announcing a historic restructuring and expansion of her deal, a deal insiders value at nearly double the original $28 million reported in 2024. Nike effectively anointed Clark as the female Michael Jordan for the 21st century. The details of the deal were a manifesto in themselves. It was framed as a lifetime alignment. It included the global From Anywhere marketing campaign, positioning Clark as an icon without borders. Most importantly, it cemented the official rollout of her signature shoe line, a project whose pre-order projections were rumored to outsell the merchandise of current NBA stars by a staggering 3-to-1 margin. The deal also contained a global tour clause, mandating that Clark be taken to Europe and Asia to promote the brand, effectively making her an international ambassador. Nike's move was a power play of breathtaking scale. It declared, with billions of dollars of corporate confidence, that Caitlin Clark was not a WNBA star, but a global athletic icon. She was an economy unto herself. The subtext was a searing indictment of the WNBA's old guard. You are debating her worth? We are building a multinational business around it. You are telling her to be grateful? She is the leverage. For Commissioner Engelbert and the league office, the timing and scale of the Nike announcement were devastating. It highlighted the grotesque disparity between Clark's market value and the league's own compensation structure. Her new deal dwarfed the entire salary cap of a WNBA team. It made the league's maximum salary look like a stipend. But more than the money, it highlighted a failure of vision. Nike saw Clark's superstardom as the rocket ship that would lift the entire category of women's basketball. The WNBA leadership, by contrast, had often seemed preoccupied with managing the jealousy in the cabin. The combination of the Ungrateful League and the spectacular Nike deal created an unsustainable pressure system within the WNBA. The two events, happening in close proximity, framed a clear before and after picture. The before was an institution cautiously trying to distribute the oxygen of attention equally. The after was a market reality, where one player generated most of the oxygen, and a global brand was building a hyperbaric chamber around her. The league's board of governors, the team owners, many of them billionaire businessmen and women, were now looking at a simple equation. Their franchise values, stagnant for years, were suddenly skyrocketing due to the Clark effect. Television rights negotiations for the next cycle promised to be historic. Sponsorship interest was at an all-time high. Yet, they were being led by a commissioner whose reported words and actions seemed out of sync with this new, explosive reality. When the person at the helm is perceived to be resentful of, or disconnected from, the very source of the league's newfound wealth, that person becomes a liability. The owners realized a fundamental tenet of business. You do not bite the hand that feeds you. And in 2025, Caitlin Clark was feeding everyone. Her success was not a zero-sum game. It was a rising tide. The mandate for leadership was no longer about fair distribution of a small pie, but about aggressively growing the pie for everyone. Engelbert, who had skillfully steered the league through the precarious waters of the early 2022s and secured a vital capital raise, was a CEO for the era of survival. The league was now entering the era of expansion, and it required a different type of leader, a wartime consigliere, media-savvy, aggressive, and unafraid to center the superstar to maximize profit. Within the player ranks, the mood grew complex. The initial jealousy some veterans felt toward Clark's spotlight began to morph, catalyzed by the commissioner's grateful comment. Players started to connect the dots. Clark's fight for recognition, for proper protection, for market value compensation was their fight. Her victory in securing mandatory charter flights was a victory for every player's health and professionalism. The massive revenue she was generating would be the basis for arguing to double the salary cap in the next collective bargaining agreement. If the league office was undermining the person creating all this new value, they were undermining every player's future earnings. The locker room chatter shifted from, "Why does she get all the attention?" to, "If they're coming for her, they're coming for all of us." And so, the reports began to circulate from high-level sports business sources. Kathy Engelbert was negotiating her exit. This was not a voluntary retirement sparked by a desire to spend more time with family. In the ruthless world of professional sports, such language is the standard PR veneer for a forced ouster. The narrative was set. The old guard had lost the war. The resignation, when officially announced, will be a landmark moment. It represents the definitive end of one philosophy and the violent, contested birth of another. It is the admission that the participation trophy model for promoting a professional sports league, where every player is marketed equally, regardless of impact or appeal, is a failed model. The future is the Nike model, the NBA model. Identify your transcendental stars, invest in them relentlessly, and let their gravitational pull elevate the entire league. The next commissioner will inherit this new reality. Their first task will be immediate and symbolic: to publicly repair the relationship with the Indiana Fever and the Clark ecosystem. Expect a photo op handshake, a clear statement of partnership, and a schedule for 2026 that optimizes every Clark game for maximum national exposure. The fairness doctrine in scheduling and promotion will be discarded in favor of the ratings doctrine. The league will finally, fully, ride the hot hand. This new leader will also have to manage the lingering resentment within the player pool. Their message must be one of clear, data-driven pragmatism. Caitlin Nike deal is not her money. It is proof of concept money. It proves the market is here. It proves fans will spend. Our job now is to convert that proof into higher salaries for all of you. Her success is not your obstacle. It is your pathway. The fallout from this 48-hour period, the Nike deal and the commissioner's resignation, will redefine the WNBA for a generation. The toxicity of the 2024 season, the awkward racial undertones, the public spats between legends and the new star, all of it stemmed from a system that was structurally and philosophically unprepared for a superstar of Clark's magnitude. That system has now cracked under the weight of its own contradiction and reformed around her. The WNBA of 2026 and beyond will be louder, wealthier, and unapologetically star-centric. It will have to accommodate Clark's global Nike commitments, seeing them not as a distraction, but as free marketing that brings international eyes back to the league. It will need to professionalize every aspect of its operation, from officiating to scheduling to production values, to match the level of the talent it now houses and the expectations of the millions of new fans. For the fans who drove this change with their wallets and their voices, this is a validation. They were the ultimate arbiters. By tuning in, buying jerseys, and demanding better, they exposed the gap between the product's potential and the leadership's execution. This resignation is their victory, a concession that the customer was right. As for Caitlin Clark, she remains the eye of this hurricane. The best revenge, as the saying goes, is massive success. She has not clapped back in interviews or on social media. She has clapped back with a signature shoe, a lifetime deal, and the quiet, undeniable power of having changed the game forever. The commissioner is leaving. Caitlin Clark is staying. That simple fact tells you everything you need to know about where the true power in the WNBA now resides. This is the story of a revolution. It was not fought with protests, but with box office receipts and stock market valuations. It was not led by a committee, but by a girl from Iowa with a deep-range jumper and a global corporation that knows how to spot an epoch-defining bet. The lane has been cleared. The old guard is stepping aside. And with the full might of the swoosh behind her, Caitlin Clark is not just ready to take the shot, she's already changing the very architecture of the arena. The game, both on and off the court, will never be the same.